I just lose it, have no shame, I admit it. Looking right at me to see if I succeed, to see if I believe. They're looking up to me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now. Swear to God, man, I'ma make it soon. Silence all the haters as they see us making moves. I do what I want, so I got nothing to prove. Staying motivated, teaching others what to do. I'm staying focused, my mind is open. They start to notice that I'm in motion. There is no potion, you're not just chosen. It takes devotion to stay composed, man. Never stop, there ain't no time to fall. Try to live, get it up, you got one life to pop. Thinking big, never small, cause you gotta want it all. When you finally get that call, you get ready, take it on. Need a hand out, I already stand out. Starting to advance now, ready to expand now. You don't have a chance now, cause we're in demand now. Make it by the grand now, feeling in command now. They're looking right at me to see if I succeed, to see if I believe. They're looking up to me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. I am TJ Lombardi, and I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon members, the Dying Breed, as I like to call them, Warrior Bernard, Fighters Maxwell, Foster, Q. We've got Soldiers Nick, Little Panda, Aiden, and Unwired. But of course, the first line of defense are defenders LG, Jodan, Miss Aoife, Wilkie, and of course Stephen Landry. And then a huge shout out to the Legion community, because man, I'm very grateful to have you guys let us stream in here, and I'm super excited because I've been looking forward to see this beautiful face of Mr. Lars Machmuller. What's up, man?
Hell yeah. Yeah, I've been looking forward to going on this show with you and just hanging out and talking shit and just enjoying it. Though I know I've already disappointed Stephen Landry already.
How so?
Yeah, I kind of promised him that the intro would include pig squeals. So, I mean, sorry, dude. We're starting off bad.
Oh, my gosh. We can add him in post-editing, I guess. That's funny. So, dude, you look a little different, man. Last time I saw you had this awesome purple mohawk.
Yeah, apparently other parents look at me weirdly when I walk around with a purple mohawk. I don't know what that's about, but I would totally walk around with that every day. But, teacher-parent conferences are a bitch when you look like that. I'll say that.
Oh, man, I figured Denmark would have been a little bit more accepting of that type of stuff.
Well, apparently on the surface, sure, but not everywhere.
Yeah,
but still, it was fun, and I'm definitely going to do something like that again. I love the punk look, so
yeah. Honestly, you reminded me so much of what was it, Guitar Hero, the one guitarist who had the mohawk and stuff.
Oh,
and I was
yeah.
like, yes, Lars, he's kicking it, man. I love it.
I hadn't thought of him in years. I've played so many hours on that, and I sucked so bad.
All right. We've got Richie Stevens coming in. Hail, TJ and Lars. Good to see you, Richie.
Richie.
Quack, quack. Hell yeah. All right. So, dude, what's new with you, man? I mean, you, what is this? 14 books. Your 14th about to be published as far as like one language. Because if you add in all the languages, you got like freaking 25. You're nonstop. So are you writing right now? Are you taking a break in between books?
Now I am writing. I am doing that lovely thing, writing and going back to editing. And actually, I'm trying to just ruin life for myself because,
Okay.
yeah,
Not recommended, but
I don't know if you remember A World of Change, the Wayward Bard. It was my first book ever.
okay, yep.
Bard virtual reality lit RPG, and I love the ever loving crap out of that series. But it's been out quite a few years by now, and it doesn't earn any money whatsoever. But I want to finish it so
Oh,
very
it's not
badly.
done.
No, there's still one book being written right now, but I cannot afford to just take like 3-4 months out of the schedule to write on it full time. Hey, Ryan. So instead, I do the sensible thing. Thanks, Richie. I do the sensible thing and I write 4 days a week on the current, the sequel to my deck builder.
Hmm.
That's hopefully going to do pretty well. And then the 5th day of the week, I write on the old series. So I jumped from third person to first person.
Okay. It's that's an interesting change.
Yeah, it is, but it actually works surprisingly well. I mean, I haven't messed up too bad from what I've noticed.
I think because I did third person with omniscient narrator, first person in Bloodbath, and it was basically I guess 3.5 books in one, then 3 full books in first person, and now I went back to a third person. And it wasn't a very hard shift once you kind of get both experience
Yeah.
under your belt.
I think it would be tougher to go from like omniscient to limited to third, because then you would just be all over the place when it comes to viewpoints, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
That's
think there's a few times where I jump into omniscient, but I'm like, if it works in the story and it's only like a paragraph or so, and it just is like helping give the reader some better context, I don't think it's that big of an issue.
yeah, totally agreed. So yeah, I write 2 different books, and then when editing passes from the first book in the deck builder come around, I jump around to editing and then jump back to writing once I'm done with that. So a bit all over the place.
Nice. Okay, so that was one of the questions I had for you was you started with the Wayward Bard. You then went to Master of the Horde, which granted, unfortunately, I don't have exposure to either of those series. Then you jump to Underdog, and now Theft of Decks. These, from what my perception of them is, these are very different systems, right back to back. How is that switching up?
So from what I've been doing with the writing, there's one thing that's been very crucial to me is figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. That both comes from like a writing technical viewpoint, how to approach this, which kinds of editors, when do I write, stuff like that, but also which kinds of stories do I want to write. So I have been very much a discovery writer, figuring out what do I want to write and which kinds of systems do I want to build. But there's one thing I've been fixed on pretty much from the beginning, and that's something I've known, from the last 25 years or so I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons, is that I love the utility characters.
Okay.
I mean, in my option, they are the absolute best. Yes, you can have the big badass warrior, paladin, or whatever, but the rogue, the bard, the illusionist, all those weird side characters who never gets any light, those are the ones that when you really get to have fun with them, those are the kinds I love. So that is basically, I am probably never going to ride like a huge badass paladin in his golden armor because I love the utility characters the most, man.
Yeah. Well, I think it gives you so much broader range of liberty to explore all those unique qualities of them and how you want to get your story from point A to point B.
Yeah. Plus, there's also the part of, well, these people are often overlooked and underestimated. So how do you want to handle this in order to make sure that they can actually not only compete, but totally, what do you call it? Totally outplay the competition. That's what I love. Taking those undervalued characters and making them shine.
Yeah. Okay, so then when or what was your inspiration for wanting to do Theft of Decks? And what was the story or what was the thing that inspired you? And then from that point going forward into it, how did you approach that whole project?
Okay, the inspiration, that's always a mess of things for me. I mean, it's usually like some mix up of some games, of some experiences, of some people, stuff like that. So basically, it was my experience from ages ago with Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
Then the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, because that kicked ass so much. I mean, that sensation, that mood of the movie, that I love that so much. So I've been trying to challenge that a bit here. And then apart from that, it was just that I thought there's been there are a few rogue stories, rogue series out there in lit RPG, but there's way too few, in my opinion. So yeah, I want to write one where it was kind of heavy on the heist, on the cheating and stealing, stuff like that. So yeah, I went in just knowing that I want it to have like a mix of Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons vibe to it, with focus on the rogue, and then I just went from there.
Nice. And that's where I've only gotten a few chapters in. I really kind of like how you start out with very much like what I would say is an American Western feel. There's the initial conflict that you experience as you open up the book. It's like, whoa, okay, this is unique. And I really liked how the deck building is not at all what I thought. Like, I literally thought it was like you're writing as from a character who's literally building a deck of cards to go into some magical combative arena. I was like, oh, that's not what this is from what it seems like so far. So it's an interesting take on the system.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you've seen a lot of so far. Oh, not a lot, because there aren't really that many deck builders out there, but yeah, it tends to be a lot of actual hold your cards in the hand decks, and then or magically attached somewhere or something like that. And then you go to an arena and compete with others, Pokemon style or whatever, stuff like that. And I want to see if I could just take a slightly different approach to it and still have that deck building feel to it, where it's all about building the optimal deck and mixing and matching with the possibilities you have. So yeah, it's been super fun.
When you come into that as a discovery writer or a pantser, I guess you could also say, was there any places in the writing where you got like caught up and you're like, oh crap, how do I get over this obstacle? Or how did you deal with that?
I always do. it wouldn't be writing if you did for me if I didn't end up in some situation and I'm like, how the fuck do I continue from here? But no, like I said, I've been trying out a lot of different techniques writing wise on how to do things, and this time I did it very differently from what I've done so far. So instead of inventing the system as I go along, this time I started by building the world and the system and having a pretty complete possibility of, I mean, I have a lot of different combinations and possible decks and cards, and so in all the different aspects and colors you can choose here. So I had that as my basis, and then when I started pantsing, well, every system choice, it was basically just a question of, well, checking my notes and just seeing, well, I want something that's fighter related, it has to be tier 2, and then it has to be something offensive. What are my options? And then I could see, well, okay, I have 3 different. So yeah, it was a very different approach, but I kind of love it.
Yeah. I mean, that's where, I mean, to a certain point, I found with Golem Master, because I've been doing mostly discovery for the most part, I answer some of my own questions along the way. Or I'll think of something, I'm like, that's exactly how this is going to tie in over here. And so did you find a lot of that too? Like, even though you spent a lot of time building the system, as you went, you were like, here's exactly how I can now add another layer of complexity.
Oh yeah. And also story-wise, that happens to me all the time. I mean,
okay,
in that part, I'm still 100% a pantser. That I have an outline, I have like a handful of pages knowing what I want to happen, and then I start to deviate on page 3. So
this is gonna be great.
Yeah, I cannot stick to an outline. I can't.
Okay,
Do you outline at all?
I do for the most part. With my first 2 series, with Golem Master, I've basically taken it point by point.
Yeah.
And there's even some weeks previously where I honestly had no idea what the next chapter was going to be. And I would take a break and I would just sit and reflect. And I was like, what is the next thing that would really hook a reader? Or what is something that you would not expect to happen? And I would just go from there. So it was really fun. But with The Dying Breed, that story had been in my head for like 13 years. Yeah. And so when I planned out every single chapter up into book 3, and then with Bloodbath, I planned out the vast majority of every single chapter, but I even had to get down to when he's engaging in combat. I knew exactly where every single bullet went. Like, I literally had a line for each bullet, because I was like, I got to make sure this whole fight scene makes sense to describe everything. So I've done both.
Yeah. So how's it been for you, like vibe-wise, taste-wise? I mean, Golem Master looks to be a lot less violent than what you've done so far.
I would say the combat intensity is just as much of any of my other stories. The only difference is that it's the golems fighting and not individuals. I have written it for basically a teen audience on up.
Yeah.
At first it was E for everyone, but there's like some nightmares and some things from the demonic attack of 13 years past, where I was like, this might be a little intense if you give it to a 6-year-old. So I'll just say it's a teen and up. The hardest part has been not having any profanity.
I can imagine. So also, I'm guessing, I mean, it's not entirely possible to write golem fighting without a decent splash of violence.
Yeah.
I mean, that absolutely has to be hard, toning it down so it doesn't become too gritty, too visceral.
I mean, from that standpoint, I mean, you're not hurting a person, and so there's like, if your golem is made out of a granite rock, yeah, if your golem is made out of granite rock, like, you're bashing its head and there's rock chips that are flying out. There's no real visceral blood or things like that to really incorporate. And the other thing I try to think about, I'm like, dude, I see teenagers all the time playing these violent video games and doing Like, I feel like the majority of, at least America, are already exposed to some of that stuff. So I'm like, yeah. So with Theft of Decks, I guess, do you already kind of have planned out like, hey, I want to do 2 books or 3 books in the series, and then do you plan to do a different deck builder, or do you already have like the next idea of where you want to go within the lit RPG genre and the subs that we have now?
Do you mean the next series or?
Yeah, the next series, yeah. Or are you kind of already seeing like, hey, and I planned on 2 books or 3 books with Theft of Decks. I now see it going 4 or 5, and if books 1 or 2 do well, that's the plan.
Okay, so I've signed 4 books, so that is locked at least.
Okay.
If it does well, I have an idea for how I would love to take the story. I mean, I can wrap it up in 4 and it'll be nice. It'll be tidy, but damn, I would love to explore books 5 and 6 as well. So if that is possible, I don't know why, but 6 books to me, that just hits the sweet spot. I mean,
really
longer. So it doesn't just have to be a trilogy. It can actually have some side quests. It can have some larger exploration and world building, but somehow 6 books just feels right. Don't know why. Can't explain.
That's interesting. I've kind of felt like right now I've been really talking to Stephen Landry, Benjamin Carey a little bit about Golem Master. Ben wants 6 books. Stephen wants 7, but as I'm writing, I'm like, I think it's just a 4-book series. And I really don't want to stretch out the story. No. I want it to be natural in its ending.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Never do Robert Jordan. Don't go Wheel of Time. Don't write 14 books or write 12 books and die if you only actually have... Sorry.
Don't just write 12 books and die without an ending. Like, you got it,
That's pretty solid life advice.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, don't take the content you have for like 3 or 4 books and just stretch it. So, but if you have the idea for how to expand on what you already have and you know where you would love to take it, well, by all means, go nuts. But
so here's a question I have for you then, because I was reflecting on this last week, and when I'm writing Golem Master, I'm at like 915,000 words total in my writing career. I just have this different sense of confidence of like, this is an awesome story and it's going to be great. But as I reflected, I was like, man, books 1 and 2, when I wrote, it was really questioning who I was as a writer, if I was even a writer. When I got to Bloodbath, which was 5, 6, 7, I guess you could say, I was like, I know I have the writing skills, but I don't think this is the story people are going to love. So did you see yourself developing that way as a writer as well? How has your writing career been for you within that aspect?
No, I haven't seen that at all, because I have absolutely no confidence in my writing skills whatsoever.
Dude!
No, seriously. I mean, that's something I've never had a shit ton of self-confidence. I can fake it with the best, but I don't have a lot of self-confidence. So every time a book actually does well for me, that is the hugest fucking relief in the world, and I love it. So no, I mean, I am getting more and more fixed in on where my what I need to develop and work on. But as to actually feeling confident, not happening.
Oh, dude, your books are so good. I mean, granted, I've done just Underdog fully, and then a couple of chapters in Theft of Decks, but man, your quality is there.
Thanks, man. Seriously.
Absolutely. I
I
really
just want,
loved.
I just want to see if my daughter wants to come on cam, but she's just shaking. No.
One of the things that I really liked about Underdog was I feel you did such a great job of balancing out the characters. Like you have a large group of people that are within that collective whole, and yet each one of them had a very unique and distinct voice to them. And I thought that was really great.
Thanks a ton. Seriously.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. So what do you have you read certain books that have really inspired you, or are there certain authors that you've read where you're like, I want to try to learn how to write just as good as them in this aspect of things?
Mm, there are totally authors that I adore.
Okay.
Um, and there are definitely some where I've like tried to adopt certain parts of it, like the Blade itself, Joe Abercrombie. He has a very distinct voice.
Yeah.
That's well, it's you can really feel the difference between the different characters in a very very vast personal gallery. I mean, as the series expands, there are so many different characters, and somehow he manages to actually keep them apart voice wise. He also wrote one series, one short story in some book or other, I can't remember, but where it jumps POV for like every 3 paragraphs or some shit like that. And it's just like blazing through 20 different persons within 20 pages. And actually managing it in a way so you can follow what's going along and which people are there. So that I've tried to adopt for sure. But apart from that, it's more a question of genres. I mean, I've always loved dark fantasy. I've always loved epic fantasy. Um, so that is where I find myself sort of gravitating back towards those
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
How about you? Where do you hail from?
You know, it's funny because I did not actually do a whole lot of reading before I started writing. And in fact, of like, oh, what fantasy books have you read? Like, well, none. But you write fantasy, like, yeah. Like I write a story. That doesn't mean I read a whole lot of fantasy. And so the vast majority of my military career, it was all personal development, military strategy, military missions, and lessons learned. So I did a lot of reading in that realm. Coming over into the fiction and fantasy, it's just like, yeah, I didn't read a whole lot. But now that I'm at the point where I am, in the last 2 years, I've tried my best to read as many of the other authors within Lit RPG. Just one, to be supportive of your peer group, and two, trying to see how their writing style is, their story development. Um, I would say Brian Norton's book, not from a story perspective, but the way he used his words and verbiage choices in building his sentences and descriptions. I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. I love the humor in David Bushman's the guy who accidentally started the apocalypse. Benjamin Carey, First Line of Defense. So I've definitely done as best as I can to listen to the peer group and just be like, okay, I get a feel for that stuff. I would say one of the things that I've tried to pick up on in Lit RPG is this level of immersion. There are some books that are kind of very skim in a broad way and kind of tell you what's going on, and there's others that are down in the weeds and you know every grit of sand that you're in conflict with.
Yeah, definitely. There's a huge difference. That's what I love. That is so impressive, though. I mean, you have got to spend more time inside your own head than any other writer I can come up with right now. I mean, I've been reading like, yeah, forever.
I was gonna
Like,
say the bookshelf behind you says that you've been reading for a while.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, when I think about what I want to create, I get inspired from everything. Like I have tons of different ideas, and it's like, okay, I can use like this exact scene from this book and then change it in this way, and then we add some aspect from another series. I steal left and right. I mean, everywhere. But you must have a sick imagination, no?
I mean, you get okay, so you draw that inspiration from those other places, like you said, right? With Golem Master, and some people may hate me for this, but like I love Pokemon. Have I played Pokemon in the last 15 years? No. I have no idea what is going on with Pokemon today, but I remember where I was when I saw my first copy of Game Boy with the red cartridge. And then I was like, why is there also a blue cartridge? Why is there two games, but you're telling me it's the same? Like, in that first experience, I was like, so if I can capture the nostalgia of that original moment when we saw Pokemon, that's what I want. I love Gundam, not in the fact of I've watched every single series, but I think there was about an hour one time when I watched the show, and I just remember that sensation of watching these giant mechanized robots combat themselves. So in my approach to Golem Master, I was like, how can I take all these things and blend them together? And what was really funny was I had no idea how I was going to make it work. Yeah. But I knew I wanted this story, and it was at Gildify Con. Brian Norton, Michael Chatfield, and two other people were on a panel, and Chatfield said, I think someone needs to do something more with golems. And that was immediately the spark. I started writing in my notepad, and for the next 2 months, I was just writing in my notepad all these notes that came to me, and I ran with it. So
I like it. Not bad. Well, you asked a bit earlier where I want to go afterwards, after
yes.
the decks, and you know how it is. I mean, the ideas are there, totally. They keep coming all the time, and we can't keep up and have to cherry pick which ones we really need to go with. But for this one, I've managed to so far have a tentative okay on the narration already, and I totally know who I want and where I'm going with this. And it's just going to be this one's just going to be a trilogy.
Okay.
So basically a streamlined 3-book vengeance story.
A dungeon story.
Vengeance story.
Okay, that's what I was like. I thought you said vengeance, but maybe you meant okay.
Morning, John. So yeah, it's basically somebody's life getting ruined, and then he's just tossed off into the middle of the wilderness and told to just piss off. And then it's just 3 books of him constantly building himself up to come back and take his vengeance.
Nice.
And it's I cannot disclose too much right now because it's something that hasn't been done so far. I mean, of course, it's obscure and so forth, but I love the idea, and the idea of having something where you just have the goal in sight right from the get-go and just go blazing straight for 3 books straight.
So
totally different.
Is this? Are you thinking like a fantasy setting? Is it going to be kind of more of a sci-fi space, real world, urban?
It's a game world. Definitely. So fantasy setting, game world, and it's just going to be on the not entirely dark fantasy, like mixed between epic fantasy, dark fantasy. So it will go dark at times, but it's not going to be like grim dark.
Oh man, you know me. I love my grim dark. I love my
Yeah,
grim
me
dark.
too.
I'm just thinking now, like, see, this is what I love is when authors get together and we start like, someone says, "Hey, I've got this idea," and then you start a brainstorm. Where I'm like, you have a character who's like a young online MMORPG player who's just getting cyber bullied, and he's constantly getting robbed and like stolen all this shit, and he somehow creates like his own world game
Yeah.
later on in life, but he like tracks down those guys that originally did that to him, and he just God, devours them in his own game. It's like a reverse dungeon, I would say, right? Like a reverse dungeon core, like a code core, a coder core.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's not healthy. I mean, there may be a tiny bit of obsession there.
What? Look, just because I have a list of enemies that I want to get back on in life doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Oh man, dude, I'm excited.
It's gonna be all Jay and Silent Bob all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. So you write about 4 days a week in Theft of Dex series, which so far, dude, I love like these lore drops that you have at the beginning of each chapter, because I did something similar in book 4, my first series, and I'm like, it gives you that different side of things of like, ooh, there's more to this story, and I'm only getting snippets of it. 4 days in that book, 1 day in another book. Have you found where early mornings are the best for you to write, or have you found where it's like, in this first book series, I had to write at coffee shops, that got too distracting, now I have a completely different setup? So how do you balance that all out?
To me, it's been I don't know if I should call it helpful, but my first 3 books, I went from having no kids and a full-time job to having a full-time job, 3 kids, and then writing on top of that. So those 3 books were written in any place available, on the phone, on the laptop, at work. I mean, I wrote about almost an entire book at work, so I don't work with them anymore, so screw.
I mean, my last year in the military, I definitely was in my office typing away at some stuff, so I get it.
Yeah. But what that did get me was the ability to just like sit down whenever I have the time and write. So the mornings we get up, we eat breakfast, I send the kids to work, and then I could make a coffee and I sit down and I write. And that's basically it. I mean, there are always different tasks and whatnot, but as long as I have the time, usually I can find the inspiration. So sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. I'm never gonna be able to compete with those people who manage to somehow crank out like 10,000 words a day. I can't do it. Also because English is my first language, so some things are not as easy for me. But still, I get things done slowly.
Yeah. Is that pretty hard for you to slow down your pace? Do you write in English? Do you write in your native tongue? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. I write in English all the time. It's basically when I was 15, 16 or so, I was totally into Dragonlance back then. And I figured out that there actually were other books, other entire series in the Dragonlance world that didn't get translated into Danish. And I was affronted. I mean, how dare they? How dare they deprive me of what I need? So basically, from then on out, I just decided, well, I need to get better at English so I can actually read all of the good stuff. And around age 18 or so, I just said, well, it's English from now on because it's cheaper and they have everything. So, yeah.
Wow.
So that goes for writing too. I mean, I'm actually, this is cool. I am getting my first Danish book published within the next year or so.
Dude, congrats, man.
Thanks. And it's going to be Theft of Decks. And I'm actually having it translated. Like, I have an actual translator do it for me.
Is it just to save time or?
And no, it's because honestly, I don't know if I can write well in Danish. I mean,
wow.
I haven't really read any Danish books in 20 years. So the odds of me actually being able to find a decent voice in Danish, it's not that good, to be honest.
Okay. As far as you know, would this be the very first Danish lit RPG book?
No, there have been a very, very, very few. Looks like, I think I just lost the connection for a second there. Anyways,
you're good now.
There's been a few. There's, have you ever seen Tina Linge? Like, I think her series is called Condemning the Heavens or something like that. She's got a couple out, but she's also Danish, and she is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Condemning the Heavens, and she's got a couple others. She actually, that's Cultivation though, so not lit RPG, but she had some translated, and it very much bombed.
Well, that's good.
From what I hear. No, it wasn't the bomb. It bombed. It tanked.
Oh, bombed.
Yeah. It wasn't
bad
good.
Bomb.
Yeah, exactly.
It blew up and not in a good way.
Yeah. But so from what I've seen and heard, there hasn't been any series so far that has really made it big time or even medium time in Denmark. So fingers crossed. My translator, at least she did this one. Don't know if you've
Atlas
seen
6?
It. Yeah.
I know, I've heard it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually read it.
Yeah, she's like pretty top tier. So, I mean, I hope that it'll be good. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, have you done much market research into the readership in Denmark compared to the US? Like, do you already kind of have a strategy to see how far it would go for you to consider it successful?
Well, there is, I have kind of a shoe-in, a tie-in, because my translator, she has done a lot of work for one of the larger publishers, and is also published with one of the larger fantasy publishers in Denmark. And I used to work as a test reader for them like ages ago, like 20 years ago. And if she's already said, I mean, if the quality is there, she will be willing to give it to like push them and see if they are willing to take it on. So Denmark is trad pop country. There is no such thing as indie publishing and actually succeeding in Denmark. It doesn't happen. I mean, in the States, you get a lot of unicorns. There's always the possibility, if you write the right thing, you throw it out there, it may stick. Denmark, it just doesn't happen. I mean, it's trad publishing dominated so hard. So I'll figure it out. I'll try to see if I can manage that way, and it'll be fun to see my stuff in the library too. So fingers crossed.
Man. I remember when I was down in Arizona for the year, I had published book 2 of The Dying Breed. And so I gave both of those copies to the library. They actually put it in the library, and they put me right next to George R.R. Martin on the specific shelf. So I was like, yes, let's go, bud. I got you. But yeah, So I haven't heard anything else from him since then. So yeah. Dude, well, this is awesome, man.
Tell me, what have you got? You're brewing on Golem Master right now. Have you got your next one lined up after that, or are you like hyper focused on that one?
As far as a series? So, yes and no. Yes and no. Like, I'm just now at 100,000 words in Golem Master, and I've got about 14 points, 14 chapters left until I'm like, yep, book 1 is complete. And for right now, I am at least still got the excitement of like wanting to dive into book 2. So that's where I'm like, hey, if I still got that excitement to go right into book 2 of Golem Master, then go for it. Yeah. But I do have this idea that I think would be fun to just do and keep it very grimdark. But basically, first person, this guy is a prisoner, and as he's in his jail cell, he hears like this slaughtering and screaming going down the hall. He gets up, and all you just see is like guards' bodies and blood everywhere. And all of a sudden, his cell door is ripped open, and there's like a giant orc. And he just pulls him and his cellmate, and he sees that there's actually 7 of them, and they are taken and then ripped through this portal that was open in the middle of the jail. And then from there, they're basically told that they are now a slave to this orc who is being tested by the clan, or the horde, I guess you could say. Basically, and Rob Gagnow and I were talking about this, and he's like, well, what's the reason? And I was like, okay, there's this other kingdom that they want to go and conquer, but there is a magical force field shield that the orcs cannot pass. And so that's where these guys were brought into their world to get across the portal, take out the power structure or whatever, and then go through there. And I was like, okay, it's called the Savage 7. There's 7 of them, and they're the most savage guys that this orc was able to link in and get them. But I want there to be some way where the main character, as soon as he gets like a weapon or like a gun, he literally just points it to one of the other 7 guys and just blows his head off. And he's like, well, I guess we're the Savage 6 now. And he's like, fuck that guy. That guy's a piece of shit. And I was like, I just want to write that scene. That's all I really want to do. So
honestly, have you considered just going like say you have like 4 books in that or something, just crossing a couple out for each book? So started with the Savage 7, book 2 is the Savage 5, book 3 is the Savage 2.
I didn't even think about that, but because I was just like, oh, this will just be one standalone book, and I'll just write it and it'll be done. And
yeah,
I don't know, So that was just, I just wanted to write that scene, and the rest of the book, I was like, I don't know.
It would be fun to see. I mean, I could just picture this cover being like the Savage 7, and then just crossed over it says 6.
Dude, that would be cool. And you're just like, why is it crossed out? Until you get to that scene. So I thought about that, and then I'm honestly really torn. So what I think is really cool is the fact that Golem Master is going to be written and done as far as a manuscript before Bloodbath even gets published. Ooh. Like Bloodbath 1, 2, and 3 are coming out at the end of August, middle of October, and the end of November. Nice. So I'm like, I could even have the majority of book 2 of Golem Master done and ready to go by then. The part that I'm torn on is the part that I'm torn on is really, do I finish Golem Master, or do I like write Golem Master book 1, a little bit of book 2, and then go back and finish book 4 of the Dying Breed, so that the first saga of the Dying Breed is officially done per se. Yeah. Because even though it's a dead series, it's got no readership. I can at least say that the saga's done. So if my readers want to support that series, they can go back.
Dude,
Um,
I totally feel you on that. I mean,
yeah.
that's exactly the struggle I've had for the past couple of years.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you remember when we were sitting at Dragon Con, I talked to you about Project High Def, which was different layers in a certain place. And I think to my conversation with Seth Ring when he talked about Dreamer's Throne, and he was like, dude, the level of complexity of Dreamer's Throne, I was just not ready for as an author when I first started until now. And I'm like, dude, the level of complexity that Project High Definition is going to require, I don't think I'm really there yet. And I don't know if maybe I'll be there after Golem Master, but that's another just straight grim, dark hellscape story. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. And that is also totally, I mean, I love the fact that you can take that and say, well, okay, writing wise, I might be up to it, but complexity wise and world building wise or whatever, I'm not quite there yet. I mean, that level of introspection, that's worth a lot.
Well, it's going to require a lot of research. Like for every circle, for every layer of this world building, there is not only the research per level, but the types of deities and structure of items per deity needs to be researched and planned out. Because it's like, if I try to wing this as a Discovery Pantser, I'm going to ruin it. And that's the last thing you want, right? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm really ready to tackle that. So that's where I'm torn at, man. I also would like to do another first person shooter because I enjoy writing those shooting scenes, but I'm not sure if the genre is really ready for that either.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's not really that many out there, but I have to admit that's one of the few kinds I haven't read a lot of. I mean, I've probably missed a few. I've only really read like Ben Ormstad's The Overtaken, and one more. Was it Matthew Sylvester who had one? I can't remember.
Oh, JD. Hey, JD. I see you over in the other chat with Stephen Landry and stuff. I can't pop your chats up on the screen because of the way the StreamYard is working, but thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, and so I don't know, man. I was like, right now with Golem Master, it's just so much fun to write. It's fun that it's a book that everyone can enjoy, and I'm almost afraid of when it comes to an end. When I wrote book 3 of The Dying Breed, the very end of the book, I got really emotional because of what had to happen in the story. What was really interesting was when I finished Bloodbath, the whole series, book 3 ended, I got really emotional because I was like, I'm not going to spend time with these characters again.
Yeah.
And it was this weird feeling. It's a feeling like you don't really experience that in other skills of life, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, some series you have to struggle to get the words out a bit. But then there are others where the characters just act out the way they are. And that sensation of just hanging out with friends and just being among people super damn well, that's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. I think that's what I love with Golem Master right now is I love the characters I'm spending time with.
Yeah.
And the tension within it. Stephen Landry and I were talking about it yesterday, and he's like, dude, you've brought in so many real world elements of conflict within characters that it's pretty heavy, but it's still a fun read. And I was like, well, yeah, like I want when you had comic books you had superheroes or situations that a lot of different people could resonate with. And I feel like with Golem Master, some of the issues that are going on, a lot of people are going to be able to resonate with some of these different complexities. So yeah.
So curious, when you think about your inspirations, game-wise, what really hits you? I mean, where do you come from there?
Well, that was what really helped me with Bloodbath, was because the majority of my games were first-person shooters. What I didn't like about first-person shooters was the game mechanics within a first-person shooter doesn't normally translate well into a lit RPG, right? Like, oh, I'm going to upgrade my gun with this, hair trigger pull thing. Why didn't you just have that from the get-go? Well, I needed to upgrade this. That's dumb. Like, if you have the technology, give yourself the technology to kill the alien or whatever. So I don't like that game mechanic within that type of a setting. But one of the games that I pretty much go to now is League of Legends, but I only do team fight tactics because I don't have the time to dedicate to the normal mode to be good or even enjoy it. But team fight tactics, I love the whole like, oh, here's the few items I have. Let me build the other advanced items to put in my monsters. And I would love to do a team fight tactics kind of story, but it's like Golem Master. I haven't figured out how to bring it in an application standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's often quite part of it. I mean, how do you wrangle it? How do you set it up in order that it's obvious, that it reflects where you're coming from? That is such a huge part that sometimes when you have that general idea, that's like 80% of the work done. Because once you have that idea, have that vision of how it's envisioned, how it works, then you can just work from there. Like Theft of Decks, for instance, I really struggled a lot with figuring out how I wanted to invent the system, how I wanted it to work. Because when you think like Magic the Gathering, you have life and you have mana you can use, or not mana, but the different colors, and that to a person, I mean, taking that and basing it on a single person who has cards and being able to use that doesn't translate in a way that I would love to read, at least. So having to adapt that in a way where the cards would work, where you can still see the scope of influence, how it expands as you get stronger, more powerful cards. And also having different colors and having them, having them work in like an infrastructure of sorts.
Right.
That was pretty much what I loved. One of the parts I loved the most about Magic the Gathering is that it wasn't just cards. They actually had an entire both religion and philosophies behind the different cards and a shit ton of lore. And that part I loved. Like, having the different colors mean something, having them interconnect. So that's where I took the idea from and said, well, we have to have these different colors. We have to have them mix and match and have to have them work together, and then build the deck from there.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting. Like, as you say that, my mind is going, like, I was trying to think of if I were to take Golem Master, write the series, and then have a sub-series based on a card deck builder, right?
Oh.
And I was like, well, I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Might be the best application for that, as the influence of like, I'm going to activate this trap card. I'm going to do this. But if you take that same concept, like you're saying, but in a fantasy world, it's like, hey, we've got these knights or paladins that are chasing us. We're trying to get away. Kevin, don't you have a trap card? Attach the card to the tree, and the tree is now the active living trap from the power of the card. And I was like, that's a really cool way to have these magical cards that are used within the world to imbue their essence or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also, I mean, a lot of deck or a lot of card games are based around summoning creatures and summoning lands and stuff. And I figured, well, in order to have it work and be interesting from a person viewpoint, well, you would have to have also just powers and spells and stuff like that. So yeah, that activation idea, that would be fun.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking of like how did the technology come to be, right? Like where was the initial arcana that was generated to have this capability? But yeah, CS, man, I love it. Like the brainstorming session of things.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, congrats on going with Legion, man. Congrats on being signed with Legion.
Thank you. It's good company. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just as insane as I am. I mean, I am looking forward to whatever company outing we go to. I'm still waiting for the invite, but it has to be.
Yeah. I think Legion is going to do a huge 1 month long 4-country vacation tour.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, yeah, obviously, just says that we're paying for it, but
I thought he was covering it all.
Yeah, that's what I tried to tell him too, but I'm really, really enjoying working with them so far. It's a different way of working because like they have the beta reader team later in the process than what I've tried before, and there's a lot of stuff you have to get used to, but the people I've worked with are amazing. So that defines so much how professional and how thorough they are, and they've really come through so far. So I mean, obviously they still have a lot of time to screw up, but so far it's been
yeah. I want to well, so you have the Patreon, and that's where I've been reading Theft of Decks from. At what point did you start the Patreon, and what, I guess, would you kind of recommend for new authors as they approach this? You know, now that you have this experience of the 14 plus books, how would you recommend that someone were to start out in getting to where you are today?
Well, Patreon, I would say marketing wise, don't do as I do.
Okay.
Because I suck at marketing. It's not that I suck at it as much as every time I've had time, I've chosen to dedicating it to writing.
Yep.
And downplaying all the marketing. So I might theoretically actually have a healthy Patreon at this point, but I have been a horrible patron and have not put a ton of content out there, have not shared a lot there, have not shared the Patreon itself very much. So, and every time I've just defaulted to going writing, because regardless whether I remember to do all the marketing that I would love to find the time for, writing, I know it always brings me further closer to the next goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, taking some time out every week to actually do some solid marketing for yourself, I think that would be my best suggestion, which I haven't followed myself. Otherwise, I mean, you're doing so much good. I mean, you're out there, you're active in the community, you talk to a lot of people. People know who you are, and you're not being a dick. So you are doing
rule number
awesome.
1, do not be a dick. And there's Lars's Patreon for you guys to go and support him.
So yeah, I mean, basically do what you do and get out there more. Let people show you. Let people love you.
Now, did you start on a Royal Road path, or did you just go like was Way of the Bard on your own, or did you go with Mountaindale for a while? Like, how did you start that process then?
The Wayward Bard, that's indie, the world of chains.
Okay.
So, and then once I was done writing like book four of that, I really, really, really needed a change of setting. So that's when I started writing Master of the Horde and contacted Dakota at Mountaindale. So yeah, that was basically it. I started indie, and then I realized there's a lot I needed to learn, and there's still a shit ton I need to learn to improve.
No, I think I lost you there for a half second.
Place
So
because
thankfully,
oh, sorry.
you just
Yeah,
you cut out at a lot you need to learn still.
yeah, exactly. So that's very much why I approached Mountaindale in the first place, because they did a lot of things really well. So I wanted to learn as much as I could from them, and I really think I have, but there's still a long way to go, man.
Well, it is one of those hard things where, when someone's like, hey, I want to start writing, where should I start? And it's like, well, do you want to start on the skills? Do you want to start on the story development? Do you want to start on the marketing, the branding, the,
Yeah.
application of spreading your audience? So yeah, there's so much of learning that, I mean, I've been at it at 2 years. You've been at it at least, what, 4 now? You've been at it at what, about 6 years now of writing?
7 or 8, because yeah, like you said, I started on Royal Road. So my first book was out in 17.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've probably been writing like a year before that. So yeah, 16, 8 years. Jesus Christ.
8 years of writing, and it's like we're still learning as we go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but that's also the coolest. I mean, when you're a trad, there's a lot of stuff that, okay, that came out wrong. When you're trad published and one of the big ones, then there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about. That gets decided for you. But we have to think about every single thing here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, there are so many things. Where do I want to spend my energy? And
Yeah.
what do I want to learn? And that can be a quagmire.
Yeah, and I think, you and I were talking about it probably before the stream where, I went from writing full time for a few months to working full time and writing now. And those are 2 full-time gigs at the same time. And so I think one of the biggest things is if you're starting out, like, just don't put pressure on yourself because there's no rush. And sorry, you guys, about the internet, man.
Yeah, seriously. I am ordering better internet actually, so I'm sorry for everything today. It's totally on my end.
Oh no, I'll take the blame for it. It's Oregon. Oregon sucks.
All right, fuck Oregon. No, yeah. I missed your question there. Sorry.
When people are starting out, I think like they put so much pressure on themselves of like, I need to write, I need to do all of these things now. And it's like, once we get to a certain level with where we're at in our writing process, it's like, no, there's no rush.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always a rush, but you also need to be sure that you don't just push yourself into stressing out and just burn out. Because if you don't take the time to chill out, enjoy yourself, actually read a book, play a game or something, then burnout is going to take the decision for you, and it's fucking ugly. I mean, my old editor is the most amazing person ever, and she's been basically non-existent for over a year now because she's been so deep in burnout, and it's just ugly. I mean, it takes so much time to come back. So you might as well just start right now and take the time that you need to be a fucking human being and not just somebody who spends every ounce of energy on producing,
Yeah.
because it doesn't work out in the long run.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing I keep telling myself with Golem Master is like, dude, if you get book 1 done this year and you don't get to book 2 until 2025, that's fine.
Yeah.
If it's a solid book and people love it, they are willing to wait for another solid book.
Yeah, totally. Completely agreed.
Nice.
So yeah, I really look forward to reading it, and I very much look forward to when we get to Jordan Con and I'm getting a hardback from you.
A hardback? Oh, dude, I don't know if I'll have a hardback ready to go.
Of course you will. They're sexy.
Yeah, well, I
Seriously.
mean, you had a pretty epic battle there. Hopefully, I did you justice with you versus Dimmy.
Oh yeah. Nice. It really looked cool. I look forward to seeing more of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I hope so.
Where can I get one of those hoodies, man?
Oh, I can order it for you, man. We can get you hooked up. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely that.
it's. I was trying to think of like if I listed all of the people that have been given parts in the book, like it would just fill the entire back of the sweatshirt. I have so a little spoiler for people in Golem Master who have not. It's actually just dropped in Patreon last night. But when I was writing, I was trying to figure out and trying to get this sense of Dragon Con's atmosphere. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have Harmon Cooper show up dressed as Queen Donut and doing a shout out to Dungeon Crawler Carl. And so that's how Harmon got introduced into Golem Master.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
By the way, Paragon was amazing. I'm assuming that's one of yours.
Paragon? Paragon? I
I don't know, Kyle.
Paragon?
Yeah. I don't remember writing a Paragon. Lars doesn't remember writing a Paragon.
I'm a parent, so I basically I have no brain cells left once the kids are in bed, so I may have a Paragon. I don't know.
Kyle, you need to let us
Help
know,
us.
man.
Help us here, Carl. Where's it from?
Yeah. So I think we're about a hour and 15 into this. So if anyone has any final questions for Lars, put them in the chat. Ignore me. My brain went somewhere else. Okay. All right. Good to know, Kyle. Good to know. So I don't know, man. What else do you want to talk about in closing? Anything anything you're reading right now that you want to give a shout out to, or?
Oh yeah, I have been actually reading a bit of Jack Fields. He's another Legion author, so it's going to be totally just pushing a friend here, but it is going to be amazing. The Scarlet Citadel. It comes out in like 3 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to 7th of June, I think.
That's it. Yep.
And it is going to be amazing. It has like, if you were to put it in like movies, it would be like okay. My brain just disappeared for a moment there. What's it called? That movie about a hairdresser who starts killing people.
Demon Barber on Hell Street. Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber
Sweeney
on Hell
Todd.
Street.
Yeah, exactly. It's got that, the producer of that one, he's done a ton of different movies with a bit of the same vibe. It's got that vibe, then with a super interesting main character who has a very quirky power, and then it's like a vivid painting gothy, kind of over the top world that is just blows up. So it's way too much, and it's awesome.
Nice.
So that one, I think people should really pay attention to.
Okay. Nice. Well, there you go, you guys. Coming out in June 7th, we believe. We know it is up on the Legion website. It's up on Amazon right now for pre-order. So you guys go check out Jack Fields' book. But also make sure you guys are checking out this beautiful bastard's book, Theft of Decks, coming out soon. 12 July?
12th of July, but I think we're actually going to be able to push it a little bit earlier because I was very efficient.
Nice. That's awesome, man. All right, you guys. Well, I think that's... Go ahead.
Yeah, and then with the Vic as Adam on audiobooks later on, and it's going to be amazing.
Dude, I'm super excited for that. Like, just reading the little bit I have read, I just know this audiobook is going to be epic. It's going to be one I really enjoy. So that's awesome. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for us. So, again, thanks to the Legion publishers and the Legion community for having us. It's been great to hang out with you guys. And, of course, the Dying Breed Patreon community, thank you so much. Links to Lars are in the video description. His Patreon is in the comments. So go give this guy some love. And, Lars, thanks again for hanging out with us, man.
It was so awesome, and thanks for having me. And I am going to be back here to chat with you whenever you have the time. It's been fun, man.
Absolutely. You always have an open invite, my friend.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys. We'll see you all later. And be sure to go watch their Dungeons and Dragons game that's going on. So, yeah.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning. These ladies know that I'm sinning, and this is just the beginning. I'm closing in the night inning. There ain't no point in resisting. Living life like a dream, live it right, that's the thing. Every night got a team, I've been tied to the scene. Out on stage, here I'm screaming, okay, it's a dream. And I pray as a team, one day it'll be me. If I want it, then I'll get it. Head down, don't regret it. Push myself to the limit. If I play it, then I win it. I'm just saying, I'm just living for today. For a minute, I don't stay, I just visit. Have no shame, I admit it. Looking on me to see if I succeed, to see if I believe. They're looking up to me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me.